Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kerry Grady Vincent, and I'm the Senior Manager of Scientific and Clinical Programs at Osteoporosis Canada. I will be your moderator for today's webinar, The Role of Protein and Nutrition in Healthy Aging, in partnership with Danone Canada and Oikos Greek Yogurt. Before we begin, Osteoporosis Canada acknowledges the land that our offices, located in Toronto, are on as the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. At Osteoporosis Canada, we educate Canadians about bone health, including healthcare professionals and their clients. We are the only national organization serving people who have or are at risk for osteoporosis. We are excited about today's presentation, which will provide information about the role of protein and nutrition in healthy aging. Today's presentation will highlight the importance of protein and share practical tips for optimizing your nutrition. It is not intended as individualized health advice. If you do have questions about osteoporosis, please consult your healthcare provider. If you do have questions during the webinar, remember to click the question and answer button on your screen to submit your questions, and we will try to get to as many as we can, time permitting. Before we begin, make sure you have your speakers turned up fully so that you can hear the presentation clearly. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Sue Mah. Sue is an award-winning registered dietitian and CEO and founder of Nutrition Solutions Incorporated, who also is the daughter of a chef. Sue has a natural passion for delicious, wholesome food, and she is a pro at decoding nutrition science into easy-to-understand everyday tips for healthy eating. For healthy living. With a 25-year career plus the 25-plus-year career as an inspiring nutrition educator and speaker, Sue has appeared in over 500 TV and media features and has presented to audiences worldwide. She is a fellow of Dietitians of Canada and the 2019 recipient of the C.P. Shaw Alumni Award for Excellence in Public Health from the University of Toronto. So please, without further ado, welcome Sue.
Hello, everyone. Wow. Thanks so much for that kind introduction, Kerry. And hello to everyone who's on the webinar right now. I hear that we have 945 people registered. So thank you for signing up, and thank you for spending this next hour with me. I'm going to share my screen, and let's just make sure everything looks good. Kerry, can you let me know how that looks to you?
Looks great, Sue.
All right, awesome. So here we go. The role of protein and nutrition in healthy aging. I'm so delighted to be presenting this topic because it really is such a timely and important topic. In fact, the United Nations has declared 2021 to 2030 as the decade for healthy aging. And so there are initiatives and programs all around the world implemented by the World Health Organization to help people live healthier, happier lives, and really to add life to our years. Here's the agenda for the next hour or so. We have a lot to get through. I'll first share some Canadian statistics around population and health conditions of older adults in Canada. I'd like to define what exactly is healthy aging. We'll then discuss the role of nutrition in healthy aging. I'll focus on 5 top sort of health conditions and really emphasize the key role of protein on a couple of those health conditions. I'll describe factors affecting our nutrition and health as we age. And then as a summary, I'll provide 10 practical, sensible, doable tips to help you get on your way and enjoy healthy eating and healthy living. I'd also like to include some time for questions. So as Kerry mentioned, be sure to type your questions in the Q&A box. Also, just a reminder that this information is for educational purposes only and not intended to replace the advice of your healthcare provider. All right, so let's dive right in. Canadian statistics. This data is from Statistics Canada, July 2024. Excuse me. And so the population of our country is just over 41 million. The median age is 40 years. Now, median is not average. Median is the middle. So this means that half of the population or half of Canadians are over the age of 40 and half of Canadians are younger than the age of 40. That's the median age. More than 1 in 3 Canadians are over the age of 50, and about 1 in 5 Canadians are age 65 and older. And in fact, seniors age 65 and older are the fastest growing population in Canada. And it's estimated that 1 in 4, or 25% of Canadians, will be over the age of 65 by the year 2051. 4.5% of Canadians are over the age of 80, and we have almost 12,000 centenarians. Wow. And I just have to give a shout out to my two grandmothers. My paternal grandmother lived to 101 years old, and my maternal grandmother, who lives in the States, turns 99 next year. So we have some good genes in the family, but it's also telling me that we're living longer. So again, let's add some life to these years, right? Now, in a report by the Health Canada, this was a Canadian Health Survey of seniors, they looked at the top 10 conditions in Canadians aged 65 and older. And so if you want to take a look at the list, you can see that the number one condition experienced by older adults is arthritis, followed by high blood pressure, high blood cholesterol, back problems, diabetes, cataracts, heart disease. Osteoporosis is amongst the top 10, urinary incontinence, and sleep apnea. And in this report by the Public Health Agency of Canada, they found something very interesting. They found that almost 50% of older adults rate their health as very good or excellent. And this is almost like a bit of a paradox, because despite living with chronic diseases, older adults' perception of their health status is influenced by factors other than the absence of disease, right? So this makes me wonder, what exactly is healthy aging? So let's look at a definition. There are many definitions of healthy aging, and I like this one from the Center for Disease Control. I like it because it's simple and it's to the point. Healthy aging is the continuous process of maintaining good physical, mental, and social health and well-being as we grow older. And I love this definition because it's simple, but it speaks to, I just want to pull out a few key words. The continuous process. It doesn't happen overnight. Maintaining good physical, mental, and social health. So it's not just physical, it's not just mental, it's this whole bundle of factors that will relate to our physical, mental, and social health and well-being. And here's something I want you to remember. Healthy aging is not just for older adults. It starts at any age. So we're all aging at the same rate, 1 minute at a time, 1 day at a time, 1 year at a time. And the healthy habits that we build in our youth, the lifestyle choices that we make in early adulthood, can have an impact on our health as we grow older. So, the role of nutrition in healthy aging. Now, as a dietitian, I can tell you that food can help prevent and manage health problems and health conditions. And a healthy diet can affect so many different things. I've only picked 5 here that I'd like to discuss. And honestly, we can spend an hour on any one of these topics. But here are the 5 that I'd like to talk about in the next hour or so. So a healthy diet can affect your cognitive health, can affect your heart health, can affect your eye health, your muscle health, and your bone health. And it's with the muscle and bone health that we really see the key role of protein. So let's dive in. Cognitive health. The Brain Health Food Guide. I wonder how many of you have heard of the Brain Health Food Guide. It's been around since 2017. And it's an evidence-based food guide created by researchers right here in Canada with the Canadian Consortium on Neurodegeneration and Aging. In fact, some of my former professors in graduate school were on this consortium. Baycrest Health Sciences, Sunnybrook Health Sciences Center, universities across Canada, including University of Toronto, Toronto Met University, McGill University, Montreal University, UBC, they are all part of this consortium. So there's over 300 researchers and clinicians who are experts in dementia who have come together to research what can we do, what can we eat, what other activities and behaviors can we engage in to preserve our brain health. So the Brain Health Food Guide, as I mentioned, is evidence-based. It's intended for adults over the age of 50. And the researchers found that those who follow the Brain Health Food Guide have better memory, better thinking speed, and a lower risk of developing Alzheimer's disease or dementia. So in the next couple of slides, I'm going to walk you through the Brain Health Food Guide. The Brain Health Food Guide talks about foods to include and foods to limit. And I know there's a lot of information. Let's look on the right-hand side of the slide right now. I know there's a lot of information, so I'll walk you through it. I also wanted to point out that if you wanted a copy of a Brain Health Food Guide, you could type into an online search and find a copy to download. So here are the foods to include. Vegetables right at the top, and we're looking at 5 or more times a day with a specific highlight and focus on cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, cabbage, and bok choy, and also a big focus on those raw leafy green vegetables like lettuce, spinach, arugula, mixed greens, kale, and cabbage. And in fact, the Brain Health Food Guide suggests eating raw leafy green vegetables at least once a day. And it provides suggested serving sizes, which were very similar to the serving sizes in the old Canada's Food Guide. So you can use that as a guide, certainly, to help you understand how much to eat. The raw leafy greens are an important source of vitamin K. And vitamin K, as it turns out, is important for brain health and also for bone health, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Fruit is also included in the Brain Health Food Guide 4 or more times a day, with a specific focus on berries, fresh or frozen, for example, blueberries. And berries, including blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, etc., because they're so colorful, we know that they contain polyphenols, in other words, plant compounds. You know, the color is indicative of these special plant compounds that the food contains. The plant compounds protect the plant. When we ingest these plant compounds, it helps to protect us. It protects us and helps to lower the risk of different diseases. Unsalted nuts or all natural nut butters, peanut butter, almond butter, etc., are recommended in the Brain Health Food Guide with a particular focus on walnuts. Now, walnuts, as you may know, are important for omega-3 fats, and they're important for our mood and also for our brain and also for our heart health, which I'll describe in the next slide. Walnuts, the researchers are suggesting consuming walnuts 4 or more times a week. So nuts at least once a day, but of those nuts, walnuts particularly. Beans, legumes are important 2 or more times a week. Fish or seafood 3 times a week with a particular focus on the fatty fish like salmon, trout, sardines at least once a week. It's funny, I just returned from a trip to Portugal, to Europe really, but we spent some time in Portugal. And sardines are well loved in Portugal. I remember going to the market and there were just hundreds and hundreds of tins of sardines. And it's such an economical food, but it does contain the fat, the healthy fats that we want, as well as many other vitamins and minerals, including calcium and vitamin D. Now let's look on the left-hand side of the slide. So the Brain Health Food Guide also recommends enjoying colorful fruits and vegetables. As I mentioned, the color is indicative of these special plant compounds that are found in the food. Whole grains are recommended over refined grains because whole grains typically contain more fiber, more magnesium, and other nutrients than the refined grains. Low-fat milk, yogurt, and cheese are recommended in the Brain Health Food Guide, as well as water for hydration or unsweetened drinks. What are the foods to limit? Now, I'm going to say foods to limit, not foods to avoid or completely cut out, because you know what? Realistically, all foods can fit, right? So these are the foods we want to limit, maybe having smaller portions or smaller frequencies. Any sort of meat or poultry, we're looking at one or less per day. You really want to think about limiting red and processed meats like deli meats, hot dogs, cold cuts, pepperoni, that sort of thing. Buttercream, high-fat dairy spreads, because they are high in saturated fat, we want to try to limit those. White breads, which are the refined breads, one or less per week. Prepackaged foods and meals, those salty snacks, fried foods to avoid, store-bought dairy desserts, baked goods, candies, chocolates, pop, sweetened fruit juice, or other sugary drinks. So this is just a list of foods to try to limit if you're trying to follow the Brain Health Food Guide. All right, so that was brain health. I'd like to just very briefly talk about heart health. Now, the good news is, I work in the media quite a bit as a dietitian, and I'm always thinking about the key messages. So the key message here is what's good for the brain is also good for the heart. So if you're following the Brain Health Food Guide, it's also going to be beneficial for your heart. So again, those colorful fruits and vegetables, which are protective for the brain and also against heart disease. Whole grains, because they contain more fiber and also more magnesium, and a special focus on barley and oats. Barley and oats contain a special type of soluble fiber called beta-glucan. And research shows, and in fact, there's a health claim allowed in Canada, showing that consuming the beta-glucan fiber from barley and oats has been shown to reduce blood cholesterol levels. Okay, so how much of this beta-glucan fiber do we need? Well, the research shows about 3 grams of beta-glucan fiber per day. All right, so how do I get that, right? So I love eating oatmeal in the morning, and I took my bag of oatmeal out and I read right on the front of the package that 1/3 cup of oats gives me 55% of the beta-glucan fiber that can help lower blood cholesterol. So more than half of the beta-glucan I need is just found in 1/3 cup of oats. Barley, about a cup and a half of cooked barley gives you about that 3 grams of beta-glucan. So there you go. If you love grains, you love whole grains, think about including barley and oats in your meals regularly to help you get that extra bit of soluble fiber, beta-glucan. Lean protein is important for heart health. Legumes, beans, fish for the omega-3 fats, those heart-healthy fats. Legumes and beans, again, for higher fiber, but also lower saturated fat. And also lean protein for less saturated fat. Nuts and seeds for fiber, but also for higher proportions of those heart-healthy monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. Soy protein is another important food that you can include if you're thinking about a heart-healthy diet. And so research shows that consuming about 25 grams of soy protein a day can also help to lower blood cholesterol levels. So again, how much is 25 grams of soy protein? This is why it's important to help to learn how to read food labels, because it'll say in the back of the package. So I went to my freezer and I pulled out a bag of edamame beans. Edamame is a source of soy protein. And on the package, it said that 1 cup of cooked edamame has about 18 grams of soy protein. Oh, okay. Fortified soy beverage will contain soy protein. Soy-based veggie burgers, soy-based meat will also contain soy protein. Excuse me. Lower fat dairy products are also important for a heart-healthy diet. Heart-healthy oils and fats like avocados or olive oil, for example. And then, of course, you want to limit salt, added salt, sodium, saturated fat, and added sugars. Okay. All right. So we've talked about brain health and heart health. Let's just move down the body. Let's think about eye health. So this was really interesting. If you remember one of the first slides, about 17.5% of Canadians actually have cataracts. There's another condition that affects us as we get older, and it's called age-related macular degeneration. Age-related macular degeneration, age being a high risk factor or a risk factor for this condition. So a risk factor being over the age of 50, can increase your risk of age-related macular degeneration. Okay, so now in this study, the researchers looked at seniors, older adults who had age-related macular degeneration and found that poor eye health affected their quality of life. In particular, the seniors were less likely to travel or drive. They found it challenging to use computers because they're, that central vision loss, and they needed help with meal prep, shopping, cleaning, etc. So you can imagine that when we start to lose our vision or when we have poor eye health, it can really affect our daily activities. So what can help? Well, here are some nutrients in foods that can help support eye health. Lutein and zeaxanthin. These are carotenoids or colored pigments found in food that can help support eye health. So we're looking at spinach, those leafy greens, kale, Swiss chard, corn contains lutein, egg yolk. So don't be afraid of eating the egg yolk because it's very nutritious. Now, if you have high cholesterol, then yeah, we need to talk about maybe how much, or you need to talk to your physician or healthcare provider about how many egg yolks you're allowed in a day. But egg yolks do contain lutein. Pistachios also contain lutein. Vitamin C, we think of vitamin C for the common cold, but it actually can help eye health. So some of the top sources that you might think of that come to mind would be the citrus, the oranges, grapefruit, and lemons. But I wanted to remind you that other fruits and vegetables also contain vitamin C. Kiwis, for example, 1 or 2 kiwis can give you your vitamin C count for the day. Strawberries, papaya, potatoes, peppers, broccoli all contain vitamin C. And then another nutrient that can help support eye health is zinc. Zinc is is important for the retina of the eye. And I put oysters right at the top because by far, oysters are one of the biggest sources of zinc. If you eat 1 oyster, it probably gives you the amount of zinc that you need in a day, okay? If you don't like oysters, no problem, because there are other foods that contain zinc, although in smaller amounts. So meat, like red meat, beans, kidney beans, lentils, seafood like shrimp, pumpkin seeds, cashews, they all contain zinc. So that's what we need to look at for eye health. Okay, so we've talked about cognitive health, eye health, heart health. Let's focus on muscle health and bone health because this is really where I want to emphasize the key role of protein. So, muscle health. Before I move on to the next slide, I'd like to ask you a question and just think about your answer. At what age do we start losing muscle mass? At what age do we start losing muscle mass? And just think to yourself, is it in our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, 50s, or 60s? At what age do we start losing muscle mass? Okay, so think of the answer in your head, and I'll give you the answer in the next slide. So, protein and muscle health. Protein is needed to maintain muscle mass and muscle strength. When we have strong muscles, it helps our balance and it also helps to prevent falls. Here's the answer. In our 30s, after age 30, we lose 0.3 to 0.8% of muscle mass a year. Okay, it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you multiply that by 10, so in a decade, we lose 3 to 8% of our muscle mass every year. Wow, that can add up. And over time, as we continue to lose muscle mass, it can lead to a condition called sarcopenia, age-related loss of muscle mass. After age 50 to 60, we lose 3 to 4% of our muscle strength every year. Okay, so muscle health is so important. And researchers found that distributing protein throughout the day can help preserve muscle health. Now, think about what you had for breakfast, lunch. Maybe we haven't had dinner yet. I'm here in Toronto, so I'm Eastern time. But think maybe today or yesterday, your meals from breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Most of us, I would guess, would have some protein at dinner and likely at lunch. But many of us may not be getting enough protein at breakfast. And it's important to distribute the protein throughout the day. So, tea and toast for breakfast, not really a lot of protein. We have to think about adding different sources of protein to our breakfast to make sure that we get a more even distribution of that protein throughout the day to maintain and preserve our muscle health. So getting enough protein throughout the day, along with resistance training, may delay the onset of sarcopenia. Now, in the next slide, I'd like to show how we can figure out the recommended daily allowance for protein. And you can find this similar calculation on the Osteoporosis Canada website too. So the recommendation for protein is 0.8 grams of protein for kilogram body weight that you weigh, or 0.364 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So let's do an example. If you weigh 70 kilograms or 154 pounds, if you weigh 70 kilograms, you multiply that by 0.8. So you get 56 grams. So in a day, you would need 56 grams of protein. If you prefer to work in pounds, then it's 0.364 times 154 pounds. You get the same answer, 56 grams of protein. So if you are 70 kilograms or 154 pounds, you need about 56 grams of protein through the day. You want to distribute that throughout the day. Now, I put a little asterisk there because some people may need more protein. It depends on so many different things. It depends on your health condition, any medications or treatments you may be undergoing, whether or not you're engaged in high intensity physical activity. So if you're training for a marathon or a triathlon, endurance training, or strength training, heavy duty strength training, you may need more protein. So I suggest talking to your healthcare provider if you're interested in knowing how much protein might be right for you. But the 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram body weight is a good general calculation, and it is the recommended daily allowance for the minimum amount of protein that you need in a day. So I had fun creating this slide, which shows the protein content of some different types of foods. So we think about meat, poultry, fish. It contains about 25 grams of protein for about 3 ounces or 100 grams of cooked meat. Tofu is also an important source of protein, 25 grams for 150 grams of tofu. What's 150 grams of tofu? If you go to the store and find that block of tofu, it's about half of that. Okay, so half of that block, 25 grams of protein. Greek yogurt, another amazing source of protein. I eat Greek yogurt all the time, went to the fridge and read the nutrition label on the back, and there were 17 grams of protein in 3/4 of a cup of Greek yogurt. So read the nutrition labels because different brands might have different amounts. 9 grams of protein in a cup of milk or fortified soy beverage, okay? Other plant-based beverages, cashew, rice, almond, etc., will not have 9 grams of protein. Probably just 1 gram of protein. So it has to be the cow's milk or fortified soy beverage in order to get the 9 grams of protein. If you've gone grocery shopping recently, you might have noticed that there's high protein milk on the grocery shelves, and they contain anywhere from 14 grams of protein or more. So again, read the label and check it out. There's also protein in cheese, 10 grams of protein for about 3 tablespoons of hemp seeds, 12 grams of protein more or less in a cup of beans. Veggie patties also contain protein. Nuts, peanut butter, eggs. 1 egg contains about 6 grams of protein. When I was shopping the other day, I found some protein pancakes. You just warm them up in the toaster oven or toaster, and each pancake contains about 5 grams of protein. So if you're looking for some variety at breakfast, you can give that a try. Quinoa, of all the grains, quinoa contains the most amount of protein, 4 grams for half a cup of cooked quinoa. So I hope by looking at this slide, it gives you some ideas on how you can build up the protein throughout your day, and especially at breakfast. So as I mentioned, try to get that protein at breakfast, whether it's pancake or maybe a parfait with Greek yogurt and fresh berries. Could be a cheese sandwich with a glass of fortified soy beverage, whatever you can do to incorporate different sources of protein. All right, so now let's move on to bone health. I should just say that my neighbors across the street love pickleball, and I think it's a fun activity too. So here we go. Bone is made of calcium, other minerals, and protein. So again, so important. It's needed to build and repair bone tissue. Now, when we have a low protein intake, it can lead to fragile bones, a higher risk of bone loss and fractures. When we have a low protein intake, it can also lead to weaker muscles, poor balance, and a higher risk of falls, right? So eating enough protein for your muscles will meet the protein needs for your bones. So think about that 0.8 grams of protein a day for every kilogram body weight that you weigh. That's a good calculation, a good general guideline. The bottom line is that protein plays an important role in osteoporosis prevention. But protein isn't the only nutrient we need for strong bones and for bone health. There are different bone building nutrients. And so I thought I would just describe these different nutrients to you, as well as describe some of the foods where you can find these nutrients. So let's start at the top left, calcium, which we're all very familiar with. So calcium, as you know, is a bone building nutrient. It's found in milk, fortified plant-based beverages, yogurt and Greek yogurt, cheese, fortified orange juice also contains calcium, almonds, canned fish like canned salmon and canned sardines, and you have to eat the bones. Think about it, right? We have calcium in our bones, so when we eat the bones of the fish, of the sardines, of the salmon, we're also getting calcium. Tofu, if it's made with calcium sulfate, will contain calcium. A good way to check is to look at the ingredients list or to just look at the nutrition facts information on the back of the package to see how much calcium there is. And beans, canned beans, legumes also contain calcium. So let's look at vitamin D. Vitamin D helps our bodies better absorb calcium, and it's found in foods like milk, fortified plant-based beverages, including fortified soy beverage. It can be found in some types of yogurt, some brands. So, check the label and see. Vitamin D is naturally found in fatty fish like salmon. It's found in eggs. It's found in mushrooms, believe it or not. Small amounts of vitamin D are found in mushrooms. And it can also be found in fortified orange juice. Okay, so that's calcium, vitamin D. Now let's move to protein. Again, just wanted to reiterate, fish, chicken, meat, eggs, tofu, nuts and seeds, beans, Greek yogurt, milk, fortified soy beverages, all contain protein. And Greek yogurt, in fact, has more protein than regular yogurt. So it's a good option to include. Let's move on to these next two nutrients that you may be less familiar with. Magnesium. Magnesium is a bone-building nutrient, and it's found in many foods, such as hemp seeds, pumpkin seeds, Brazil nuts, edamame beans, leafy green vegetables like spinach, kale. And so do you remember me talking about these leafy green vegetables earlier? Yes, right, for heart health. Leafy green vegetables. Dark chocolate. I had to throw it in there because it's one of my favorite foods. Yes, dark chocolate contains magnesium. Beans, whole grains like quinoa and milk also contain magnesium. And finally, vitamin K is another bone-building nutrient. So vitamin K is found in all of those delicious leafy green vegetables: kale, spinach, turnip greens, beet greens, parsley, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, asparagus. And it really doesn't take a lot. Like half a cup of cooked leafy greens probably gives you close to your day's worth of vitamin K. Kiwis also contain vitamin K, and if you remember, they also contain vitamin C. So a nice mix of foods here. And an important message to remember is to really eat a variety of different foods, because then you get this wonderful mix of nutrients that can support health in so many ways. All right. So how do you know if you're getting enough of these important bone-building nutrients? Well, the Osteoporosis Canada website has an amazing resource called the Nutrient Calculator, and I've used it. It's wonderful. So you go to this website link, and you basically search for the foods that you've eaten for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then it tallies up each of these nutrients: calcium, vitamin D, protein, magnesium, and vitamin K, and it lets you know whether you're getting enough for your age and your gender. So check it out. All right. Factors affecting our health and nutrition as we age. There's so many different factors that affect our health and nutrition. I'm going to start with the physiological factors. As we get older, our chewing and our swallowing changes. We might have dental problems. Swallowing may become more difficult. So, that's something we need to think about as we're choosing our foods, as we're preparing our foods. Our digestion slows down as we get older. Nutrient absorption changes. So, for example, our bodies absorb less vitamin B12 and our bodies produce, less vitamin D from the sunlight after the age of 50. So these changes naturally occur as we get older. Our sense of smell and taste changes. And sometimes you might notice that your parents, yourself, your grandparents might need to season their food with more flavoring and more sodium, hopefully not too much sodium, but because the smell and the taste of food is declining. Our sense of thirst decreases also as we get older. And this is so important for seniors and older adults because, we can't wait until we're thirsty to drink because our sense of thirst has declined. Our nutrition needs change. As we get older, we need more fiber, we need more calcium, we need more vitamin D. And at the same time, our caloric needs go down. Okay, so we need more of some nutrients, but we need fewer calories. So it's important to choose nutrient-dense foods. Our appetite changes. We tend to have maybe a lower appetite. Health conditions can affect our appetite, can affect our swallowing, can affect our chewing, as can medications. So those are just some of the physiological factors that can affect our nutrition and health. What about some of the behavioral factors? Loss of independence. For example, let's say you're no longer able to drive. Will this be an issue for getting groceries, for going to see the doctor, for getting your flu shot, for example? Mobility may change. If you have aches and pains, arthritis was the #1 condition experienced by seniors. Mobility can affect our nutrition and also our health. Loneliness and social isolation. Boy, did we ever feel this during the COVID pandemic, right? And especially for seniors, let's say losing a loved one, losing a spouse, losing a partner can really create a sense of loneliness. And that sense of social isolation can lead to some, depression or lack of interest in eating, lack of interest in cooking. And finally, environmental factors. These are the physical and social supports that we have. So eating with others, is there an opportunity to eat with others? Research shows that eating with others is important not only as a family, but also as we get older, we tend to eat better and eat a little bit more when we eat with others. Food security. Do we have access to safe, affordable, culturally acceptable, nutritious food? Access to transportation. Is there transportation available which can take us to doctor's appointments, pharmacies, grocery stores? Access to healthcare and social connections. And we know social connections are so important for health as we get older. And I remember in the UK, probably a good 10 years ago, they actually announced and appointed a minister of loneliness because from a public health perspective, we know that loneliness can have such an important impact on a senior's health and nutrition. So those are just some of the factors that affect our nutrition and health as we age. I'm going to sum things up now with 10 tips to optimize your nutrition for healthy aging, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions. So don't forget to type your questions into the chat box. All right, or into the Q&A box. Okay, so 10 tips for healthy aging. One is to keep a regular eating schedule. So because our appetite may decline, or maybe we're living alone, we may be less interested in eating as we get older. But by keeping a regular eating schedule, it helps to ensure that you're still getting the nutrition and the calories that you need. So try to eat at regular times, and that will remind you and nudge you to enjoy different foods to help support your nutritional health. Eat with others whenever you can. People in your community, your neighbors, different community groups. Food brings people together. And I know during the introduction, Kerry mentioned that my dad is a chef. So when we were young, every Monday, that was my dad's day off. It's also a note to say that most of the best chefs are off on Mondays. So avoid visiting a restaurant on Mondays because you'll get the secondary chef. Anyways, So every Monday was my dad's day off. And when I was young, we would have this big family meal. So my brothers, myself, my mom, my dad, my grandparents came, my aunts and uncles. It was just a big family meal. And food is love. It brings people together. It's such a great social activity. So eat with others whenever you can. Choose nutrient-dense foods. So remember I said that our caloric needs go down. We don't need as many calories because we tend to be a little less active, but yet we still need fiber, calcium, vitamin D, and all of these other bone-building nutrients, right? So choose nutrient-dense foods. Enjoy leafy greens every day. Vitamin K found in those leafy greens, as well as magnesium. Not only are they important for heart health and brain health, but they're also important for bone health. So a spinach salad, throwing some spinach into an omelet, having a kale salad, arugula, adding some leafy greens to a soup or stew or casserole is really simple. And all you need is a small handful, really, to get enough vitamin K. Add nuts and seeds and berries to your meals and snacks every day. So this was a big focus in the Brain Health Food Guide. The nuts, again, for those heart-healthy omega-3 fats, they're also brain healthy, higher in the monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. Pumpkin seeds, amazing for magnesium, which is a bone-building nutrient. Berries, especially those blueberries, are great for brain health. And you want to incorporate them into your meals and snacks as often as possible. Tip number 6, eat protein at every meal, especially breakfast. So remember, we're trying to distribute the protein consumption throughout the day. Many of us get enough protein at dinner, lunch, but I find that it's really breakfast that we may be lacking in protein. So think of that slide where I had the different pictures of protein-containing foods: Greek yogurt, cheese, hemp seeds, edamame beans, milk, all of these foods that we can incorporate into our meals every day, and particularly breakfast. Stay hydrated. As we get older, our sense of thirst declines, so do not wait until you're thirsty to have some water or unsweetened beverage to quench your thirst. I like to keep a bottle of water with me, like a big bottle of water, right on my desk. I keep one on the kitchen counter so that any room that I go to, there's always a queue for me to drink. I'm going to have a drink of water now. Because all this talking is making me thirsty and I need to be drinking before I get thirsty. Okay. Read nutrition facts on food packages to check the nutrient content of food. So when you take a food package and read on the back, it will tell you the calcium content of the food. It'll tell you the calories, the protein, the fiber, etc. Some food packages will also give you more detailed information. For example, the vitamin D and the magnesium. And so you want to read the food package to check out some of those nutrients that might be of concern to you, whether it's protein, whether it's magnesium, vitamin D, or calcium. And foods and brands vary when it comes to protein or calcium or vitamin D. So always just check the back of the label to see exactly how much you're getting. Use the nutrient calculator to check your intake of bone-building nutrients. It's a great resource. It's free. It's available on the Osteoporosis Canada website, and it's a great way to check to see if you're getting enough. And then my final tip is to take a vitamin D supplement every day if you're over the age of 50, because we just can't make enough from the sunlight. And especially in the months of October to March, there isn't enough sunlight for us to be making vitamin D from the sun. And talk to your healthcare provider about whether or not you need other supplements to maintain and promote your health. So that's the end of the presentation. I hope you've learned some interesting information and picked up some valuable tips. I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Wow, thanks, Sue. That was absolutely terrific. So, so much information for all of us to think about. We do have lots of questions. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Some were submitted when people were registering, and we've received quite a few during your presentation. So we'll see what we can get to. So let's start with this question. At 75 years, is it possible to stop bone mass loss or improve it with exercise and protein?
Oh, that's a great question. So We know that bone health can be preserved and maintained with good nutrition, as well as resistance training and weight-bearing exercise. So if you're doing that, keep it up. Whether or not it can stop or reverse bone loss, hard to say because there are so many other factors that we have to consider, like what's your bone mineral density right now? Are there any medications that you are on? Hormone level, any other health conditions that you might be experiencing. So definitely, I would say keep up with the good nutrition, good diet, all those bone building nutrients that we talked about, as well as the regular physical activity with the weight bearing exercise and some resistance training. And that would be a step in the right direction for sure.
Thanks. Our next question is, can you talk about getting protein while on a vegan diet?
Such a great question because many of us may be focused on a plant-based diet. So I put a few food options for protein, vegan food, but vegan and vegetarian food options on that slide. But I'll just remind you that tofu, fortified soy beverage for protein, edamame beans, hemp seeds, some grains like quinoa, beans are all amazing sources, vegan, vegetarian sources of protein. You can get enough protein on a vegan diet. Make sure you include plenty of these foods throughout the day in order to ensure that you're getting the right combination of amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein.
Okay. Um, can you explain what a complete protein is?
Okay. I sure can. So protein foods are made of amino acids. They're sort of the building blocks of protein. Some foods are missing one or two. Okay, let's go back. A complete protein contains all of the amino acids, and that's why it's called a complete protein. Some foods are missing one or more of these amino acids, and therefore they're called incomplete proteins. Now, many years ago, the advice was to say, okay, you need to combine different foods in order to get the complete protein. So for example, you need to combine beans with rice because the amino acids that's missing in beans is found in rice. And the amino acid that's missing in rice is found in beans. So when you eat these together, you get a complete protein. The advice now is you don't have to worry so much about having them at the same meal, although it's common to eat these together at the same meal. So you're getting this complete protein effect anyway. The advice now is to make sure that you're eating a wide variety of plant-based foods throughout the day. And that will ensure that you're getting those pieces of the puzzle coming together to form the complete protein.
Okay. Um, Another protein question. Do we need to have protein powder if we're not getting enough protein from our regular diet?
Oh, that's a good question too. Okay, so start off by using that calculation on the Osteoporosis Canada website, as well as the nutrient calculator to see just how much protein you're getting. Now, if you're not getting enough protein or you feel that you need to add more, I always say food first. Food tastes delicious. There are other nutrients that you're getting from food. So food first is my approach. However, if you'd like to add some protein to your smoothie, your shake, your baked goods, etc., you can think of that or consider that as a additional source of protein.
Okay. We're going to move on to a few more questions.
Okay.
Are the protein needs different for men versus women?
Oh, that's a good question. So the general recommendation or the recommended daily allowance for protein is 0.8 grams of protein for every kilogram body weight that you weigh. So that's the same calculation or the same requirement, whether you're male or female. However, since males tend to be heavier, to weigh more, the protein needs will increase, right? So 0.8 grams times a heavier body weight in a male means more protein consumption. So higher needs overall when it comes to the amount, the number of grams of protein in a male versus a female, but the same calculation, 0.8 grams of protein needed in a day for every kilogram of body weight that you weigh. Yeah, that rhymes. Didn't mean it to, but it rhymes.
A question to follow up on that.
Yeah.
There's a few questions about if you're overweight, is your protein needs the same, or is it still based on your weight, or is it based on something else, on your ideal?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. So if you feel that you're overweight or you're working with a healthcare professional and trying to figure out the amount of protein, it's based on the protein of the weight. I hate to use this word, the ideal weight. It's based on the weight that you are aiming for.
Okay. Okay, let's switch gears here. You talked a little bit about tofu earlier, but someone's asking for some more ideas about cooking with tofu. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah. So there are different types of tofu. There's soft tofu, firm, extra firm tofu. So the soft tofu is, as it's aptly named, soft. And this is the tofu that I grew up eating, actually. So it's soft, it's silken. You can use it in smoothies, shakes. I just stir fry it. It breaks up a little bit, but I don't mind because I like the texture. So that's the soft tofu. You can also use it in desserts like pudding, for example. The firm tofu, so there's firm and extra firm, it can be used in a variety of different ways. And I know there's some really great recipes on the Osteoporosis Canada website, but you can use it in stir fries. The most important thing to remember is that tofu is very bland on its own. So you need to add flavorings, a marinade, a sauce, or something, and let that tofu, it's kind of like a sponge, let that tofu really soak up the different flavors that you've put into it. I've made tofu burgers. I know there are some great recipes, as I mentioned, on Osteoporosis Canada website for some different stir fry recipes. There's also smoked tofu that you can find at the grocery store. So it's already been flavored for you. And you can cut that up and put it in a salad or a stir fry or a casserole. So those are some interesting ideas to try.
It sounds good. Um, we're just going to have time for a couple more questions.
Okay.
Can you comment on oxalates and calcium absorption? This is a common
Mm.
question.
Yeah, that's a common question. So oxalates are these naturally occurring compounds that are found in foods such as sesame seeds, some leafy greens, for example. And what they do is they bind to calcium and prevent calcium absorption in our body. So sesame seeds do contain calcium, but our bodies don't really absorb it well because of these oxalates, right? And I'm thinking on Osteoporosis Canada website, there might be an article or something about this, but you can find a list of foods that might contain oxalates. And if you enjoy these foods, I mean, I love sesame seeds and I'll sprinkle it in my stir fry and whatnot. Know that they are beneficial for all sorts of other nutrients, but don't rely on it for your source of calcium.
Okay. Here's a fun question. What do you put in your morning smoothie?
Well, you know what? I love frozen berries. So my morning smoothie has a little bit of Greek yogurt. I do maybe a splash of orange juice. Depends what I have in the fridge, really. If I have some spinach, I'll throw that in. I often throw in some frozen blueberries, strawberries, whatever's in the freezer. Um, I give that a little whir. Sometimes if I want, I throw in a little bit of hemp seeds because it gets all mixed up and gives it a little bit of extra texture. But yeah, anything goes. I mean, it's you don't really need a recipe. You can just have fun with it and use the ingredients that you have on hand. You know what else I've done too is a little bit of avocado and frozen cauliflower.
Oh,
Frozen cauliflower gives it this almost creamy consistency too. So just
oh,
play around, have
that's an
fun with
interesting
food.
combination. Okay, we're gonna have one more question and then
Okay.
we'll wrap things up. Um, can you consume too much protein?
This is a good question.
Yeah,
I would say you probably can consume too much protein. The question is, how much is too much?
that is the
That's the
question.
real question. How much is too much? So let's think back to that calculation. 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram body weight. That is the calculation for the minimum amount of protein that you need in a day. But as I mentioned, some people might need more. So if you're training for endurance sports like a marathon, triathlon, Ironman, if you're doing heavy duty strength training, like we're talking weightlifting, if you're on chemotherapy, for example, your protein needs will increase. Okay. Can you get too much protein? Maybe. If you're eating protein-rich foods and using protein powders and consuming protein-enriched drinks, maybe maybe you can get too much for your own needs. So use that 0.8 grams as your guideline, and then speak to your healthcare practitioner, or if you have a sports, let's say you're an athlete, you're working with a sports dietitian, speak to your healthcare provider about the amount of protein that's best for you, depending on your lifestyle and your medical health conditions.
Wow. Well, that was great, Sue. We've run out of time, but so many great questions. So I want to thank you again, Sue, for such an informative presentation on the role of protein and nutrition in healthy aging. I also want to thank our partners, Danone Canada and Oikos Greek Yogurt. And I wanted to tell folks if they need more information on osteoporosis to please visit our website at osteoporosis.ca. Our website includes many tools, including our nutrient calculator that Sue talked about, uh, past podcasts, quizzes, and a repository of past webinars. We also wanted to point out to folks about their end of year giving because of the postal disruption. So to ensure your holiday giving donation reaches our office, we recommend donating easily through our secure online donation page found at osteoporosis.ca. Tax receipts will be automatically issued, or you can make a donation over the phone by calling our office. I think Roy has it up here. Yeah, 1-800-463-6842. And finally, I want to thank all of you for joining us today and hope you will join us again soon. And have a great day, everyone. Thanks again for joining us.